Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sage 1 Accounting webinar. The topic that will be handled in this webinar is banking. What has changed in our banking structure? Under your banking menu, transactions, we have the banking option. All banking transactions happen on one screen. Previously, you imported your bank statement using the bank statement screen, and you process your bank and credit cards has now been replaced by the banking screen as well. This is where you will manually capture transactions or review your imported transactions. All of your transactions are automatically processed to the ledger. In other words, your bank balance in Sage 1 has been updated at any transaction entry, and they have not been assigned with the mapping ruled, and they will automatically be assigned to an unallocated account. The banking screen has two tabs. The New Transaction tab. Use this tab to capture new transactions and import your bank statements. When you are happy with the entries, then mark them as reviewed and select the Mark Selected as Reviewed option. The Reviewed Transaction screen, this tab shows history of all banking transactions. You can view all transactions by using the date range that's been selected, and if you need to make any changes, you can do so from within. The banking screen is much wider to allow you to see more information, and it is packed with lots of new features. When capturing your bank statement, you either create a manual transaction. So for example, if I were to be paying for my telephone account, under my payee, I could add Telkom, under my description, Telkom once again. Under my type, this would be a general ledger account, and under my selection, I would then assign this transaction to my general ledger expense account being telephone and internet. I would need to specify whether there is VAT on this transaction or not, and under my spend column, I would then add the amount. I do have the option to show more or less the breakdown of this particular transaction. The icons as illustrated on your right hand side have been broken up into your Create Rule option. These rules will change the way you do your cash book processing and save you countless hours. They apply to users that import their bank statement. We then have the Split Transaction option, which allows you to split one bank statement line into various account allocations. You have the option to be able to add an attachment. And under your Allocate your customer receipts and supplier option, you have the option to be able to receive money from your customers or place suppliers and even allocate them directly from your bank account. You then have the option to be able to add a line below, alternatively to be able to delete a transaction within this window. Once I'm satisfied with this particular transaction, I would then select it, mark the selected as reviewed, and it will then be shifted to the Reviewed Transaction screen. Moving back to importing of my bank statement. When importing your bank statement, select the Import Bank Statement option. From the drop-down box, select the file format. Browse through to the file that you will be importing. And on selecting of Import File, your transactions from your bank account will then pull through. You'll notice that it automatically adjusts the bank balance in the following screen. These transactions will automatically be allocated to an unallocated expense or an unallocated income account. When reviewing your transactions, all your newly imported transactions will appear within this tab. Once you are happy that you have assigned your transactions to the correct accounts, you can then process them, and this will move them to the Reviewed Transaction tab where they will be considered as reviewed. Let's say, for example, I wish to do a batch edit. I would select the transactions that need to flow to the same accounts, select the Batch Edit option. In the following transactions, I would be paying B. Duprier, which is a supplier in my business. You'll notice as I add the information, it is automatically affecting both of those transactions. I will then select my supplier account, and under my supplier name, I would choose B. Duprier's account. If I wish to create a rule, I can by selecting the Create Rule option. However, if I'm within a batch edit, I will not be able to create a rule. Once I have finished editing, I select Finish Editing, and I then have the option with just the marked transaction to be able to select them and transfer them to my reviewed transaction screen. Moving back to my new transaction window, let's say for example I have made a payment over to the council for a water and electricity bill. If for example this is the transaction, I would add the payee to be my water and electricity account. Under my type, this would be a general ledger account, and I would need to assign it in my business to either water or electricity, as I wish to split this transaction between two different general ledger accounts. I would select the VAT on this transaction, and when I chose to split the transaction, in the following window, I will have the option to be able to add a separate amount for water and a separate amount for electricity. In the split transaction screen, you have the option to be able to split one transaction between two or more accounts, and they will then be illustrated as follows. Once again, when I am satisfied, I have the option to choose it, mark it as select, and move on. If, for example, I have a scenario where I have more than one receipt, for example, coming from the same customer, even though I haven't chose to do a batch update. For example, I have the exact same descriptions that have appeared on my bank statement. I would then select the customer that would be paying me, add the customer account, and if, for example, this is a cash customer and I need to add him for the very first time, as he's always been dealing with me on a cash basis, I can even save a customer master file from within this window. If I select to create a rule and add the customer name to this particular mapping description, you'll notice that based on the same description, all of the transactions have been mapped automatically. If I wish to allocate receipts or payments, I can do so using the following option. The allocation screen will then pull through, and I can just select which invoices the payments or receipts need to go through. Please remember, under your review transactions, you can go back to a prior date, select refresh, and adjust any transactions, alternatively delete them. You will be unable to delete or edit any transactions that fall within a lockdown period, alternatively that fall within a closed VAT period. We have reached the end of this webinar, and I do hope a lot was taken in. Please feel free to join me on another future webinar. Thank you.